You say you're looking, but in reality you're chasing a carrot tied to a stick like a rabbit. The harder you run, the farther it gets. And you tense up, your mind clouds over, you get impatient, because a desperate mind can't see clearly. Look at this. You don't plant a seed and dig it up every day to see if it's grown. You water it, you care for it, and you let it do its part. The Stoics called that order. Things ripen when it's time, not when your anxiety demands it. If it's your first time here, my name is Gabriel, and this is the Stoic Garden. Stay until the end because today we're going through 11 Stoic lessons to understand why, when you stop searching in desperation, what matters most starts finding you. Let's begin. First lesson. Nature has order, not your urgency. How many times have you caught yourself staring at the clock as if the clock should obey you? It happens with money, with love, with health, with peace. You tell yourself it's time, and when it doesn't happen, you feel like something is wrong with you or with life. But life doesn't run on your emotional calendar. It runs on processes. And when you try to force the process, all you get is wear and tear. The tragedy isn't that what you want doesn't arrive. The tragedy is that you break yourself along the way. Think of a tree. Nobody yells at a tree to grow faster. Nobody threatens it. Nobody compares it to the tree next to it. You water it. You care for it. You give it soil. You give it light. And then you step back. Because you understand something basic. Growth doesn't respond to anxiety. It responds to order. And you, on the other hand, sometimes do the opposite with yourself. You water yourself with haste. You feed yourself with pressure. And then you wonder why you don't bloom. It's a polished way of mistreating yourself. Here's the belief that keeps you trapped. You think that if you let go of urgency, you'll become mediocre. You think calm equals giving up. And that's why you live as if being peaceful were dangerous. But look at the irony. That urgency you call ambition is often just fear of not being enough. You're not searching bravely, you're searching hungry. And hunger doesn't choose well. Hunger grabs the first thing that soothes it, even if it hurts you later. The inner consequences go deeper than you admit. You live with a background tension, like your body is always waiting for an alarm. You struggle to enjoy what you do have because your mind is stuck on what's missing. You become impatient with people, with yourself, with life itself. And that impatience makes you clumsy. You make impulsive decisions. You latch onto tiny signals. You read silence as rejection. You invent threats to justify the rush. You burn out early and then call it bad luck. Stoicism invites you to align with the order of things. Marcus Aurelius didn't ask reality to adapt to his desires. He asked his judgment to adapt to reality. Nature isn't wrong for moving at its own pace. You're wrong for trying to impose yours. Discipline isn't rushing the result. Discipline is holding to what's right long enough for life to do its part. That's inner mastery, not resignation. So turn the volume down a bit. Notice where you're pushing too hard. Are you demanding love like it's a debt? Are you demanding certainty like it's a right? Act, yes. Do what's yours to do, but learn to step back afterward. Like the gardener who works the soil and then respects the season. You don't need to chase the fruit. You need to become someone who can hold it when it arrives. Nature doesn't reward desperation. It responds when you're in order. 2. Obsession comes from trying to control outcomes. Sound familiar? Checking your phone over and over even though you know nobody has texted. That moment when you think just one more time and end up opening the same door 10 times? That's not curiosity. It's anxiety. It's your mind trying to squeeze a guarantee out of the future. And since it can't, it turns compulsive. Obsession isn't intensity. It's fear pretending to be determination. In daily life, you see it in small gestures you've normalized. Silence is hard because silence doesn't give you control. You overplan to avoid uncertainty. You rehearse conversations that haven't happened. You practice replies, imagine scenarios, brace for blows that may never come. And when something goes well, you still can't rest, because immediately you think, what if it ends? That's what it's like to be in love with the outcome and disconnected from the present. What you don't want to admit is this. You don't want peace, you want certainty. And since life won't give it to you, you get angry at life. Sometimes you even get angry at people for not behaving the way you expected. You become someone who asks for security, wearing the mask of, I'm just being careful. No, You're trying to control the uncontrollable so you don't have to feel vulnerable. And that need for control is stealing your dignity in small, almost invisible installments. The inner mechanism is ancient and deeply human. Control gives you an illusion of power. It makes you feel that if you monitor enough, analyze enough, anticipate enough, nothing will hurt. But life doesn't sign contracts with your vigilance. Life changes, people change, the body changes, circumstances change. And when you try to lock the outcome in place, you go to war with what's inevitable. It's not that you're weak. It's that you're fighting an impossible battle. Stoicism cuts that war off at the root, what depends on you and what doesn't. Epictetus said it plainly, if you place your peace in what you can't control, you're handing over your freedom. Your effort depends on you, your posture, your words, your conduct. But the final result isn't your property, it's a consequence. And consequences aren't demanded. They're earned through consistency and then accepted with maturity. Drop the habit of negotiating with the future. When you catch yourself checking, anticipating, comparing, stop for a second and ask what you're trying to avoid feeling. Because that's where the truth is. You're not chasing outcomes, you're avoiding discomfort. And discomfort, as annoying as it is, won't kill you. What will kill you inside is living chained to a mental screen that never turns off. Start acting like someone who respects himself. Do your part precisely, and then step back. Not to abandon yourself, but to stop humiliating yourself in front of uncertainty. Life can't be controlled. It can be faced. And it's faced better with a straight back, not with trembling hands hovering over the outcome. When you try to control the outcome, you lose control of yourself. 3. Hurry makes you blind to what's already here. You think running means moving forward, but often it's just escaping what's right in front of you. You convince yourself life will start when that missing thing arrives, and meanwhile, you trample over what does exist today. You do it as naturally as someone walking into their house without seeing the living room because they're only thinking about their phone. The uncomfortable question is this: what if what you say you're looking for is already here, but you can't see it because you're moving too fast? Hurry shows up in small things you treat as normal. You eat without tasting. You reply to messages without really reading. You end conversations without being present. You wake up thinking about what's missing. You fall asleep thinking about what you didn't reach. And in between, life happens like scenery out a bus window at full speed. When someone asks how you are, you answer with a list of tasks, not with the truth. You're not living, you're managing urgency. And the worst part is that hurry often comes dressed up as virtue. You are told that whoever stops loses, that resting is laziness, that being calm is dangerous. You were sold the idea that anxiety equals responsibility, as if a rushed mind were automatically a serious mind. It's a convenient lie for the world, but cruel to you, because it keeps you useful, but never fulfilled, busy, but never clear. The cost doesn't always show on the outside, but it accumulates inside. You start to feel a strange fatigue, like everything weighs a little more than it should. Your mind becomes reactive, sensitive, combustible. Tiny details irritate you, slow people annoy you. You get frustrated with your body, your age, the world's pace. And then you lose the most valuable thing, your ability to perceive. Hurry steals your perception, and without perception, you make poor decisions. Imagine searching for your glasses while they're on your face. That's what it's like when hurry runs you. You move things, open drawers, get agitated, blame yourself, panic, and the object was always there, on your face, holding your sight. Hurry doesn't just make you make mistakes, it makes you unable to notice the obvious. It turns you into someone who begs for signs but can't see the ones you already got. The Stoic shift here isn't slow down as a gentle tip. It's understanding that your attention is your life. Marcus Aurelius didn't talk about controlling the world. He talked about governing the mind so you don't live like a stranger in your own day. True discipline isn't doing more. It's being where you are. It's stopping the mental sprint into a future that doesn't exist and returning to the only place where you can act with dignity, the present. Start watching yourself honestly. When do you speed up to avoid feeling? When do you fill your day to avoid hearing yourself? When you learn to stop without guilt, you'll notice something strange. What felt empty starts to have substance. What felt like silence starts giving you answers, and what felt slow starts becoming precise. Hurry doesn't give you more life, it takes it without you noticing. Fourth lesson, Attachment turns desire into suffering. People tell you wanting things is normal, and it is, but nobody teaches you the difference between wanting something and clinging to it as if your life depended on that outcome. The problem isn't aspiring. The problem is turning your aspiration into your identity. When you do that, any delay feels like humiliation, any silence feels like rejection, any no feels like a sentence, and then you're not desiring anymore. You're suffering. Attachment becomes visible in everyday scenes. You wait for a reply and it doesn't come, and your mind starts writing stories. You want someone to choose you and you become watchful. You want stability and you obsess over signs. You want recognition, and every day without applause tastes like failure. Life moves on, but you stay stuck on a single point, as if nothing else counted. That's attachment's trick. It shrinks the world down to one door. Then comes the justification, because the ego always finds a polished excuse. You tell yourself it just matters a lot, that it's normal to worry, that if you don't insist it cools off. And with that logic, you allow yourself to tense up, pressure, control, beg. You don't call it attachment because it sounds ugly. You call it love, commitment, responsibility. But if your calm disappears the moment something shifts, it isn't mature love. It's emotional dependence with a nicer name. The invisible root is simple and brutal. Fear of loss, fear of being alone, fear of not being enough, fear of time running out, fear that life won't return what you gave. That fear makes you grip hard, and when you grip hard, you suffocate. You suffocate yourself, you suffocate the other person, you suffocate the moment. Attachment doesn't try to care, it tries to secure, and life can't be secured. The long-term cost is constant erosion. You live with your body on alert, like something valuable could slip away at any second. You become distrustful, demanding, impatient. You confuse boundaries with threats. You confuse distance with abandonment. And that sustained tension robs you of inner elegance. You lose your center. You become someone who reacts, not someone who chooses. And that loss of choice is what hurts most in the end, because it makes you feel small. The philosophical turn isn't giving up on everything. It's reclaiming sovereignty. The Stoics were clear. Your peace can't depend on something you don't control. You can love, you can work, you can build without putting your whole life up as collateral. You can want intensely without becoming a hostage. Desire without attachment is strength. Attachment without inner mastery is suffering. The healthier stance is sober and real. Do your part clearly, but stop bargaining away your dignity for an outcome. Don't become cold, become solid. Don't become indifferent, become free. When you feel that urge to grip, ask yourself if you're caring or controlling. That's the difference between a life with healthy desire and a life of permanent anxiety. Attachment doesn't prove love, it proves fear. 5. A noisy mind invents scarcity. You're not suffering only because of what you lack. You're suffering because of the story your mind keeps repeating about that lack. And that story is usually exaggerated, relentless, and cruel. It tells you you're behind, it's too late, you've run out of time, others have it and you don't. If it doesn't come now, it never will. That isn't reality speaking. That's noise. And when noise takes over, you start living like you're always losing something. The pattern behind that noise is almost never intellectual. It's emotional. A mix of insecurity and a hunger for certainty. A noisy mind doesn't seek truth, it seeks relief. That's why it compares, why it rushes ahead, why it chews the same thoughts over and over. If you're in a season of life where you've already lost things, where you've already felt change, where your body doesn't respond the same, it's easy for the noise to get louder. Not because you're weak, but because it scares you to feel the world moving on without asking permission. The metaphor is simple but heavy. It's like sitting in a room full of food, the table set, and still feeling hungry because someone turned on a radio blasting, "There isn't enough." It won't let you taste, won't let you be grateful, won't let you be present. It just pushes you to look for more even if you don't know what more is. And the saddest part is that sometimes you're the one turning that radio on every morning without realizing it, with your very first thought. The cumulative cost of living like this is a life in survival mode. You struggle to enjoy an achievement because immediately you wonder how long it'll last. You struggle to receive affection because immediately you imagine what happens when it's gone. You struggle to rest because you feel guilty. You struggle to celebrate because you're already calculating the next threat. That feeling of scarcity makes you hard, not by personality but by exhaustion. It makes you distrust life, and in the end it makes you unfair to yourself. The inner shift comes when you realize the most dangerous scarcity isn't material, it's scarcity of presence. Because when you're present, even small things carry weight, nourish you, and leave a mark. And when you're not, nothing is enough, even if you have everything within reach. You can have people close by, open opportunities and a decent life, and still feel empty. Not because of what's missing, but because your attention is scattered, devoured by comparisons and expectations. In that case, the noise isn't the world misbehaving. It's your mind demanding more before you've even tasted what already arrived. The real obstacle was never reality. It was how you were looking at it. The Stoics invite you to see life as a banquet. Dishes circulate, come to you, pass on, and you don't have the authority to stop the tray or snatch it from the person next to you. The only thing you do decide is how you receive what's yours. When it arrives, you take a moderate portion, you're grateful, and you pass it on. If what you wanted doesn't come, you don't panic or poison yourself with envy, because becoming an anxious hunter in the middle of the banquet only leaves you hungry even when there's food. Serenity doesn't come from hoarding. It comes from knowing how to be. So turn the volume down, not as a cute technique, but as an act of dignity. Stop lunging at every thought like it's a tray slipping away, and watch the urgency before you obey it. Notice when the temptation shows up to reach ahead, to demand, to compare, to look at someone else's plate like it's proof of injustice. Stay still for a second and see whether that impulse is real hunger or a mental habit. Ask yourself whether what you're thinking makes you more human or more reactive. That pause doesn't make you slow. It makes you the owner, and whoever owns their attention stops begging for peace. When you take this stance, perception changes and practical life changes with it. You become more sober. You enjoy what comes without turning it into dependency, and you accept what doesn't come without turning it into drama. You make decisions with less anxiety and more precision, because you're no longer negotiating with fear or hurry. You start seeing resources where you once only saw lack, and support where you once only saw absence, because your view is no longer contaminated by the noise of, "It should be different." It's not that the banquet suddenly changes, it's that you stop fighting the tray and finally taste what's right in front of you. 6. Right action doesn't need anxiety. You think that if you don't feel pressured, you won't move. You think calm makes you slow, so you drive yourself with guilt, fear, and inner threats. If I don't do this now, I'll lose it. If I don't push harder, it won't happen. If I don't suffer, I don't deserve it. And that's how you turn your life into a tension factory. But here's an uncomfortable truth. Anxiety isn't fuel, it's leakage. It makes you spend energy on imaginary scenarios, not on actions. Notice how right action feels when it comes from clarity, not panic. It feels clean. It feels direct. It doesn't need a mental show. You do what needs to be done, with order, without asking the future to clap for you. But when you act from anxiety, your mind demands guarantees before it moves. It wants to know it'll go well. It wants to know it'll be worth it. It wants to know it won't hurt. And since nobody can guarantee that, you end up spinning in circles, working a lot, accomplishing little, always exhausted. Anxiety also contaminates your intention. You start doing things that are really attempts to control. You send the message not to communicate, but to soothe yourself. You make the gesture not out of conviction, but to secure a reaction. You strive not for excellence, but out of fear of falling behind. And then, even if it looks like movement, it's bondage. You train your mind to believe it can only function when it's scared. That's slavery disguised as discipline. The Stoic doesn't worship the result. He worships the duty done well. Not because he's moralistic, but because he understood the only place you win freedom is in your intention and your conduct. Marcus Aurelius said it 1,000 ways. Do what reason asks of you now and accept the rest as part of the order. That doesn't mean you don't care. It means you don't corrupt yourself inside. You don't trade your stability for a promise that doesn't exist yet. When you do your part calmly, your mind becomes more precise. You see better, choose better, correct better. Anxiety makes you clumsy because everything feels urgent. Calm makes you effective because it separates what matters from what doesn't. And that's where a decisive change appears. You stop searching desperately and start building patiently. You stop chasing the fruit and start cultivating the soil. That difference is the bridge between chaos and character. Here's a simple but demanding practice. Before you act, check your state. Ask yourself whether you're acting to do what's right or to calm fear. If it's fear, breathe. Reduce the impulse, come back to the present, and choose one small, concrete action that depends on you. If it's conviction, move forward without drama. You don't need to punish your mind to get moving. You need to train it to obey your judgment, not your anxiety. Because life is won through consistency, not urgency. Right action when it's real doesn't scream inside you, it gets done. 7. Dignity forbids begging for validation. This lesson hurts because it shows you a part of yourself you'd rather not look at. The part that wants to be liked, wants approval, wants to hear "good job." It's not a sin, it's an ancient need. But when that need takes the wheel, you become negotiable. You become someone who adapts too much, stays quiet too much, explains too much. And in that over-explaining, something intimate gets lost: self-respect. Begging for validation doesn't always look like obvious pleading. Sometimes it looks like forced jokes, like the lines you search for to be liked, like silences you swallow so you won't make things awkward. It shows up when you change your opinion depending on the room, when you apologize for existing, when you do favors hoping to be loved back. It shows up when you post something and your mood depends on the number you see. And above all, it shows up when you betray yourself a little so others won't leave. That's the most expensive way to pay for company. The problem is, it never ends. If your value depends on other people's gaze, there's always a new gaze to win. There's always someone who doesn't understand you, someone who doesn't choose you, someone who judges you. And instead of holding yourself, you bend. You become an expert at reading signals, anticipating reactions, avoiding rejection. And the more you practice that, the more you forget something basic. You also have to approve of yourself. The Stoics talked about dignity as an inner strength that isn't for sale. Not out of pride, but out of consistency. Epictetus taught that if you want to be free, don't put your peace in external things. Validation is external. It shifts. It's fickle. Today they applaud you, tomorrow they ignore you. And if you let that swing drag you around, your life becomes an emotional roller coaster with no brakes. Freedom begins when your center no longer needs permission. Dignity isn't becoming cold, arrogant, or indifferent. It's stopping the begging for a place you earn through integrity. It's speaking when it's time, staying quiet when it's time, leaving when it's time. It's not explaining what the other person doesn't want to understand. It's not competing for attention. It's not shrinking your soul to fit someone else's expectations. It's choosing the discomfort of being real over the comfort of being accepted through a lie. When you start living from dignity, two things happen. First, some people leave because they can't manipulate you with praise or guilt anymore. Second, you breathe because your behavior no longer depends on applause. You start choosing from principles, not from fear of looking bad. And then, paradoxically, something you've always wanted arrives. Respect. Not the respect you ask for, but the respect you command without violence, just through consistency. Stopping the begging is a way of stopping the search, because you stop running after other people's eyes and start building your own gaze. That's where everything changes. 8. Patience is discipline in the face of time. You think patience is waiting still, but really it's staying on the path without panicking when time doesn't cooperate with your desire. Impatience isn't just an emotion, it's a form of arrogance, the hidden belief that life should move at your pace, and when it doesn't, you get irritated, frustrated, you quit or you rush. Patience, on the other hand, is the ability not to break the process out of discomfort. Time doesn't just delay. Time tests. It tests whether your intention was real or just a whim. It tests whether your discipline is steady or depends on day one enthusiasm. It tests whether your love is mature or just hunger. And when you don't see fast results, you tend to take it as proof that it's not working. You change direction, you change goals, you change people, you change methods. Not because you found something better, but because you can't tolerate the empty space between planting and harvesting. The Stoics watched nature to understand this. No season gets skipped. No seed demands spring the next day. Patience is accepting the season without losing right action. And here's the nuance. Patience isn't passivity. Patience is consistency. It's doing what's yours to do while time does what it does. It's repeating what matters even when nobody celebrates it. It's holding the effort without turning it into drama. Impatience tricks you with a promise. If you rush, you'll suffer less. Usually the opposite happens, because when you rush, you make mistakes. You attach yourself to the first thing that shows up. You take shortcuts that cost you years. You build on weak foundations and then act surprised when everything collapses. Patience, though it looks slow, is long-term precision. It's the discipline of not wrecking your life over a 10-minute emotion. Here's a way to train it that changes your relationship with the world. Stop measuring your life by immediate results and start measuring it by the quality of your conduct. Ask yourself each day whether you were consistent today, not whether you won today. Ask whether you acted with honor today, not whether you were rewarded today. That measure gives you stability because it depends on you. And when you depend on you, time stops being an enemy and becomes an ally. With patience, your mind stops fighting the natural pace of things. And when you stop fighting, you start noticing opportunities that used to feel invisible. Life doesn't open up to the person who pounds on the door in desperation. It opens to the person who insists calmly, because calm is a sign of strength, and strength is the only thing time respects. Patience isn't waiting for it to arrive, it's becoming worthy of receiving it when it does. 9. Solitude reveals what you were avoiding. When you stop searching, there's a silence that scares you, because in that silence there are no excuses, no noise, no distractions protecting you from yourself. A lot of people keep searching non-stop not because they're missing something outside, but because they're afraid of what they carry inside. They chase goals, relationships, stimulation, and call it life, when it's really an organized escape. But solitude, when it comes, holds up a mirror with no filter. At first it feels like emptiness, like you're short on emotional oxygen. You catch yourself opening apps for no reason, rereading old conversations, looking for any sign that you still matter to someone. And the truth shows up. Sometimes you're not looking for love, you're looking for anesthesia. You're not looking for company, you're looking for a way not to hear yourself. Because if you stay still, you start feeling what you've postponed for a long time. Grief, guilt, exhaustion, frustration. The sense that you're not living the way you want. That isn't weakness, that's raw humanity. Solitude also shows you the kind of bond you were building. If being alone makes you feel like you don't exist, maybe you were using others as a mirror. If no messages makes you feel worthless, maybe you mortgaged your self-esteem to other people's attention. And that explains why searching becomes compulsive. It isn't desire, it's dependence. The Stoic doesn't condemn that need, but he examines it rigorously, because what you don't look at controls you, and what you look at honestly starts to loosen its grip. Here's the shift. Solitude isn't punishment, it's training. It's where you get your voice back, where you learn to keep yourself company without turning into your own judge, where you discover you can feel discomfort without running to shut it off. Marcus Aurelius wrote to himself in solitude to order his mind and not live at the mercy of external noise. Not because he despised others, but because he understood that without an inner base, any relationship becomes a patch. The practice is less romantic than it sounds, but more powerful. When you're alone, don't fill the space immediately. Stay a little longer. Notice what thought shows up first. Notice what emotion tries to push you to search outside yourself. Name it. Don't argue with it, don't dramatize it, just recognize it. That simple honesty starts building something rare these days, stability. And when you have stability, you don't search out of hunger. You search by choice. Over time, solitude stops hurting like a threat and starts feeling like your own territory. You become someone who doesn't need to run to feel alive. And then, paradoxically, your relationships improve because you stop entering them from need and start entering from fullness. You no longer ask them to save you from emptiness. You share from a cleaner place, and the world notices that change. 10. Gratitude places you in the present, not as a pretty phrase, but as an act of mental order. Because the mind that never stops searching lives in the future, in when I have, when it happens, when it arrives. And that future becomes a promise that always moves one step ahead. Gratitude cuts off the chase, not by killing ambition, but by bringing you back to the only place where life actually happens. Here, now, in what's available. But let's be honest. Sometimes gratitude is hard because you feel like being grateful means settling. as if recognizing what's good would betray your goals. So you trained a gaze that detects shortcomings with surgical precision. You see what's missing, what didn't work, what they didn't give you, what you aren't yet. That gaze keeps you moving, yes, but it also keeps you dissatisfied. And a dissatisfied life, even if it achieves things, feels poor on the inside. That's the trap. You can win outside and still keep losing inside. Gratitude doesn't deny what hurts. It just refuses to let what hurts become the whole story. Meaning, you can be in process and still recognize what supports your process. You can be rebuilding and still see that you're breathing, that you have a body that carries you, that someone listens to you, that there's a small chance today. The Stoics practiced this soberly, remembering that everything you have is borrowed, and precisely because of that, it deserves attention. What you take for granted becomes invisible, and what's invisible doesn't nourish you. When you train gratitude, the way you search changes, because you stop searching from I lack and start searching from I'm building. You stop searching to fill a hole and start searching to expand what already exists. That difference is massive. The person who searches from a hole panics. The person who searches from inner abundance acts calmly. Gratitude is a discipline that cleans your gaze so you don't confuse need with purpose. Make it real, not ceremonial. This isn't about rattling off quick lists like Lucky Charms. It's about looking at something concrete and recognizing its value without rushing. A simple meal that feeds you. A conversation that holds you up. A day without tragedy. A body that still responds. A mind that can still learn. If you truly look, your heart drops its guard. And when your heart drops its guard, anxiety loses power. Urgency loosens. The present becomes livable. And here's the strongest part. Gratitude doesn't just make you feel better, it makes you act better. It makes you more patient, more generous, less reactive. It gives you perspective so you don't burn everything down over a momentary frustration. It reminds you you're not at war with life, you're in dialogue with it. And if you're in dialogue, you don't need to chase. You need to respond intelligently. Gratitude isn't the end of the search, it's the right place to begin. 11. Stopping the search changes what you think you need. This is the lesson that hits hardest because it reveals something. Sometimes you aren't chasing what you want, you're chasing what you think will make you feel safe. And those two aren't always the same. You stop searching when you realize your anxiety wasn't a sign of destiny, it was a sign of emptiness misread. And then something strange happens. Your priorities rearrange themselves without effort, like there's a compass inside you that finally stopped shaking. When you search desperately, you confuse intensity with truth. If it hurts, you think it matters. If you obsess over it, you think it's fate. If it unsettles you, you think it's urgent. And that's why you end up giving time, energy, and dignity to things that only give you short relief. When you let go, the body rests and the mind clears, and a question appears that you couldn't hold before. Is this really for me? Or do I only want it because it distracts me from myself? Stopping the search also shows you that many needs were conditioning. You wanted recognition because you feared being invisible. You wanted control because you feared vulnerability. You wanted a person because you feared being alone. You wanted an answer because you feared uncertainty. And when you see that, you don't become superior, you become lucid. You start separating what's essential from what's noise. The essential is usually simple: inner peace, consistency, health, honest relationships, purpose. The noise is everything else: impressing, competing, proving, rushing, winning for ego. Stoic philosophy pushes you to this point firmly. It doesn't promise life will be comfortable. It promises you can be strong. It reminds you that everything external is unstable, and that's why your identity can't depend on it. When you understand that, you stop chasing to fill a hole and start working to build character. You stop searching for life to give you and start searching to be someone who's up to it. And with that shift, the curious thing is, many things do arrive. Not by magic, but because you stop scaring them away with desperation. Now everything starts to make sense, but not as a mystical quote. What comes is what fits your sustained conduct. What comes is what your patience allows. What comes is what your dignity doesn't sabotage. What comes is what your calm makes possible. Because when you're calm, you choose better. When you choose better, you place yourself in better environments. When you place yourself in better environments, you meet people and opportunities you couldn't see before. Not because the universe changed, but because you stopped acting like someone shattered by urgency. And here's the inner closing of this lesson. When you stop searching, you don't lose desire, you lose desperation. And that's freedom. You keep walking, building, aspiring, but no longer with your heart in your hands asking permission, with your back straight, with an ordered mind, with a life that doesn't need a promise to feel valid. You stop searching, and in that silence you find yourself. If there's one thing you should take away from these 11 lessons, it's this. Life doesn't become kinder when you chase it. It becomes clearer when you put yourself in order. Anxiety promises control, but the first thing it steals is the present moment. And without the present, everything feels insufficient. When you run after what truly matters, you turn it into a burden. When you return to your center, what matters regains its place. It's not about the world giving you more. It's about you stopping living as if you're gasping for air. Real calm isn't finally it's over. It's I know who I am no matter what happens. The change you made today isn't spectacular. It's quiet, and that's why it works. It's a different way of walking within yourself when no one applauds you, when nothing gets resolved quickly, and when your mind wants to rush everything. You become less reactive, more grounded, more dignified. And that steadiness isn't coldness, it's clean strength. You stop obeying every thought as if it were a command, and you stop negotiating with your restlessness. When you do that, something settles. You no longer need life to validate you in order to feel at peace. Peace becomes a stance, not a reward. Look at yourself honestly. How many times have you confused seeking with suffocating persistence with losing yourself, waiting with humiliating yourself inside? Stoic philosophy doesn't ask you not to desire. It asks you not to surrender yourself. It doesn't ask you not to love. It asks you not to beg. That difference is your freedom. No one can think for you. No one can uphold your dignity for you. And even though that may hurt, it's also good news. Because it puts the wheel back in your hands. What rules you inside eventually rules your life outside. If urgency rules you, you'll live running. If fear rules you, you'll live asking for permission. If attachment rules you, you'll live afraid of losing. But if clear judgment rules you, you'll live with stability even on hard days. That's the real promise. Not that everything will turn out the way you want, but that you'll stop breaking when it doesn't. And you're not alone in this. This community exists because many of us are learning the same thing. To live without betraying ourselves, not perfection, practice. Returning to your center every time you lose your way. If this content brought you value, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And I want to read you in the comments. Write, I am a Stoic, along with the name of the country you're listening from, because I like knowing which parts of the world make up this community. I'm Gabriel, and this is the Stoic Garden. 2 recommended videos will now appear on your screen so you can keep going deeper with more clarity and calm. Choose one and continue because inner order isn't understood once and for all. It's built through conscious repetition. See you in the next one.